Oh, hospital porters, pride and dignity, stop the New World Order. Welcome to HPANWO TV. Well, it's Sunday, sort of mid-afternoon now, isn't it? I've lost track of the time.
Yeah, we've mid-afternoon now.
We've had a busy old day. We've had 3 speakers already. Now, the first was Gary Heseltine. Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, he's actually been treated pretty badly because, as I say, he's a policeman. We were discussing yesterday, but he was treated really badly. He got into trouble at work, a bit like I did, didn't he?
I think he got in trouble for actually using the name of the police force he worked for in association with his UFO work. Now, I'm pretty sure that they didn't really care about him doing UFO work. They just didn't want their name tied in with what he was doing, kind of thing. So, I mean, he dropped the name, so he kept his job, literally. But, yeah, I mean, this is how they treat the subject.
It's a strange. I mean, I said this because basically I got into trouble at work for the same reason. Now I was sacked, Gary wasn't, but it's strange that so many people in authority react with such violence and such repulsion to something which they say doesn't exist, and they say is nonsense. It makes no sense. But anyway,
Gary talked about the Rendlesham Forest.
He did. He's one of the best researchers in that subject, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And with all his detective skills, it's not surprising. I mean, he does really look at it from a kind of like a detective standpoint.
He talks like a policeman, doesn't he?
He does absolutely talk like a policeman on stage.
He does. He treats a subject as a police investigation, and he says things like. Now then, we got all this evidence here, which I could go to court with this. I could go to court with the witness testimony. I could go to court with the physical forensic evidence. And he says, to me, it's a perfectly clear case that this wasn't.
I mean, it does seem like a pretty clear-cut case. I don't know if many of your viewers seen this morning, back in April.
Oh, yeah.
Gary Heseltine on there where he took Chris French apart, because also Chris French had to go on was the flying lighthouse hypothesis. And what was really strange about it was I heard that apparently before Chris French had asked for a list of his arguments, like his questions and everything like that, so he had time to work on it. Now, if the shoe had been on the other foot, I'm sure Chris French would have been like, well, no, you have your argument, I have mine. So
he wouldn't. I don't think, as a skeptic, I don't think Frenchie would have wanted to say, well, look, whoa, boom. I think the thunder god is angry with us right now. Luckily, we're sheltered under this, so we're not going to get soaked. But no, I mean, it's really, really good to see on YouTube because. It's an important thing to do with skeptics, right? This ties in with a bit of what Natasha Kimovich said as well later on. But basically, they have, imagine if just an old man had been walking in the woods with his dog that night and seen that triangular craft landed. What would people like Chris French say? They would say, "There's not enough evidence. I would believe you." If they'd sent the security police out to investigate,
and then they had photographs,
yes,
video evidence, basically everything that was at Rendlesham, taken away.
No one got an imprint of the landing site.
Apparently, the testimony of these highly trained airmen who were guarding like the biggest nuclear missile set in northern Europe, apparently.
Exactly. Why didn't they see it?
Apparently, these guys don't know the difference between a lighthouse and some strange and unexplained lights, and that should be disconcerting for everybody who's got trust in the military.
It was actually.
Sorry, but I've got a lot more faith in the military than.
Well, actually, I've heard that it was a levitating truckload of burning manure being driven by a parachute test dummy. No, it's really incredible because this is what the skeptics would say. This is a trick they use called raising the bar. What they do is they'll say something like say, if an old man walking his dog in that forest in 1980 would have seen it, they'd have said, well, why didn't they send the security police out? Why didn't they call the base commander away from his Christmas party to go and walk out in the woods with a tape recorder? Why was there no photos of the landing site? Why was there no plaster of Paris casts of the impressions the craft left when it landed on the ground? Things like this. And now they'll say something like, now, if only that evidence was around, then we'd have a clear case.
Yeah,
but that evidence is present. What they do, they raise the bar. They say, well, that's not good enough. We need more evidence. We need more.
Yeah, however much evidence you throw at them, they always need more evidence. Say that they don't look at it analytically. They just look at it from one point of view. Like with Rendlesham, they talk about kind of why did it take 3 years to come out, kind of thing. It's because these guys watched nuclear weapons. Their word was trusted. They didn't want to jeopardise their jobs or their careers. I mean, people like Colonel Holt was quite high up in the military.
Very. I mean, he was put in charge of he was deputy commander of a base.
Why would he go public and say, "Oh, look, seen a UFO last night"?
No, yeah,
I mean, he'd get crackpotted and he'd lose his job and everything. So, I mean, this is another thing the skeptics point to. Or why didn't they come forward before? Because well, why would you? If you want a high-powered job, would you come forward with that kind of testimony? Like I say, and he had photographs. He didn't have a photograph. He had like the mould of the landing gears and stuff. Was that Peniston or Burroughs?
It was Burroughs who actually got that. John Burroughs actually went to a friend of his who's a builder and got some, or painter and decorator, and got some plaster of Paris. Went back to the site, filled up the hole with it, and then took it. And he's still got it today, actually.
Yeah. And that's according to Gary Heseltine, physical evidence.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is what now. The interesting thing about this now. Going back on to skeptics, but I mean, people say, well, why did it take that long to come forward? Well, in fact, as UFO reports go, the Rendlesham Forest actually came out very quickly indeed. In fact, usually this is a bit of a bugbear, as Nick Pope would say, of UFO reports, is that they tend to be a very, very long period of time between when the event happens and when it first starts being investigated. A good example, of course, is Roswell, which actually took over 30 years. For serious investigation to begin. Now, if that was the case with Rendlesham Forest, we'd have only just heard about it, 2 years ago.
Because let's face it, they don't want people to know about it. And I mean, that Roswell thing just about goes to prove it. If it was a weather balloon, I mean, why not come out like I say that they said it was a weather balloon? Why not produce the parts of it and kind of reassemble it all and show everyone how it was done straight away, rather than let people come asking questions 30 years later? It doesn't make sense to me.
In the case of Rendlesham Forest, it all came out very, very quickly. It came out within 3 years. Is pretty good actually, as I said, now another point that Gary made. I mean, he puts together a very, very convincing case that Rendlesham Forest was a real ET event. Oh my goodness! I hope it's not raining where you are, HPANWO TV viewer.
I like the way you said ET event and it went.
Oh yes! I think. I'll tell you what. But he puts together this very, very convincing police-type argument, and then after that, he puts together another interesting theory, because now we know that UFOs seem to have an interest in nuclear weapons. I myself have a UFO photograph, which you regular viewers will know this because I've shown it to you. A photo I took at the Garlock in Scotland in 1998, which was of a disc-shaped craft hovering over the nuclear facility at the Trident submarine base at Heseltine. I've still got that photograph. It's a very interesting photo, yeah.
Sorry, where was that in Scotland?
It's on the Firth of Clyde, which is there's a very, very large. There's a submarine base there. The Trident. And this is where the Trident nuclear missiles are based, and they're submarines. Now, what we have with Rendlesham Forest. Now, we all know that there were large protests outside Greenham Common because there were a few dozen warheads on cruise missiles. Now, but the people, they used to laugh at those women in their tents because they were in the wrong place. They should have been at Bentwaters Woodbridge, because that was where the nuclear stockpile was. Yeah. And it's funny that this is where the UFO appeared. Now, this is not unusual for UFOs to appear near nuclear facilities, especially, and it looks like they're keeping an eye on the political situation on Earth too, because now I was only a little kid at the time, but I know from studying history that there was a lot of turmoil in the world at that time. What happened was it was all centred on Poland. Yeah. Lech Wałęsa and Solidarity had come to power, and they were threatening to topple the government. Now, everyone was terrified that the communist Polish government would ask for help from their masters in the Soviet Union. Now, the last time this happened was in Hungary and Czechoslovakia in the 1960s and the 1950s. In both those occasions, the Soviet army invaded the country, and they very brutally put down the uprising with much bloodshed. In Hungary, I think 1 million people were killed. In Czechoslovakia, again, similar numbers were killed.
Split the country in two, didn't it?
Oh, it was terrible. It was an absolute nightmare, a complete massacre. Now, the thing is, Reagan and Thatcher were calling up the Russians, and they were saying, "Look, leave Poland alone, leave them alone, or else." And the Russians were saying, "We'll do what if we want to come to the aid of our comrades in Poland. We will do so. And so there was a very, very sticky situation there. Now, as you know, if you're familiar with of Captain Robert Salas, not to be confused with Michael Salla, the Australian ufologist. I've made that mistake before. Captain Robert Salas has had a similar experience. He was a commander of a nuclear bunker in Wyoming when strange lights started appearing above the base, outside the gate, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the missile switched off.
Yeah, and it was the Minuteman missiles that was switched down, and he rang him up in the middle of the night, didn't he? He's like, "Sir, there's a red object," and he sounded really excited.
Yeah.
He jumped up. He went, "How on earth can this happen?" It's like not just one, but all of them shut down. And I think this is what that reporter was talking about, that Richard Dolan was talking about that time. That's what he was reporting on, wasn't it? But he didn't mention that. He just mentioned how bad the cookies were.
Yes. Oh, well, that's an exact. That's his. Gary Heseltine raised this subject as well. Now, Gary's really, really worth seeing, and he's a very, very interesting guy. And I tell you, if he doesn't convince you, no one will. And please watch the debate with Chris French, because Gary absolutely annihilates this bloke. I mean, we'll never convince him, because I've said this before on my radio show. Skeptics are not. They talk about science, they talk about reason and evidence, but they are not. They have an ideological commitment to
the status quo.
The status quo. Yeah, that's what it's about. So, I think that concludes our review of Gary Heseltine. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order.